Imagine this powerful idea, one single, huge nation, sharing the same language, this really deep history, a common culture stretching right across continents, from the Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. That's the idea we're diving into today, Arab unity. It's complex, definitely turbulent.
Oh, absolutely. And it's an idea that, as well as our sources really lay out, has shaped the Middle East for, gosh, over 100 years now.
Yeah.
It's a story of incredible highs, moments of real ideological victory, and then these crushing lows, political collapse.
Right.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to trace that whole roller coaster, the rise and fall, and maybe rise again of Arab nationalism. We want to get into the history, sure, but also understand why this idea, this deep need for dignity and self-determination still resonates so much today.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we start? Let's go right back to the beginning, the origins. How did this identity even start to form?
Yeah, we need to set the scene. Think late 19th, early 20th century. Most of the Arab world is politically under the Ottoman Empire. And identity back then, it was often, very local. Your region, your tribe, maybe your religious group. Not really this broad Arab idea yet, not politically anyway.
But the Ottoman Empire was weakening, wasn't it? Kind of fading.
Exactly. It was in decline, and that created this vacuum. And into that space stepped Arab intellectuals, reformers, poets, journalists, mainly in cities like Beirut, Damascus, Cairo.
What were they saying? What was the shift?
They started asking fundamental questions about who they were. They realized, hey, despite our local differences, we're connected by a Lugha al-Arabiya, the Arabic language, first and foremost, and by this incredible shared history going back centuries, like the Islamic Golden Age.
So it wasn't immediately about let's form one giant country. It was more cultural first.
Precisely. It was about defining themselves, finding that common ground separate from the weakening Ottomans, moving beyond just being, a tribe member or simply Muslim, to embracing this wider Arab cultural heritage.
Interesting. But then World War I happens.
Right. And that's when this cultural feeling crashes headlong into global politics.
And leads to what many call the Great Betrayal. This sounds like a really crucial, painful moment.
It is. It's fundamental. So you have the Arab Revolt in 1916. Sharif Hussein of Mecca leads it. And they're fighting with the Allies against the Ottomans.
Based on promises, right?
Explicit promises. The understanding, the belief was that they were fighting for a single independent Arab kingdom after the war, stretching, all the way from Syria down to Yemen.
There's always a but in these stories, isn't there?
There is. While these promises are being made publicly to Hussein, Britain and France are secretly carving things up differently.
Sykes-Picot.
That's the one. The Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916. Secretly, they agreed to divide those very same Arab lands into their own zones of influence. France gets Syria and Lebanon. Britain gets Iraq, Palestine, Transjordan.
So literally drawing lines on a map that ignored everything on the ground. History, people, economies.
Yep. Pretty much. It was pure colonial calculation. And, well, when the war ended, these secret plans became reality through the League of Nations mandates. The dream of one Arab state shattered, replaced by several smaller states under European control.
Wow. You can see how that would just change everything.
It did. It transformed Arab nationalism. It wasn't just a cultural project anymore. Now it was fundamentally anti-colonial. It became a movement of resistance, demanding self-determination, reclaiming dignity, and crucially, overturning those imposed borders.
That context is so important. The failure then meant that the later push for unity wasn't just idealistic, it was about correcting that historical wrong.
Exactly. Independence first, then unity could follow. And that brings us, skipping ahead a bit, to the mid-20th century. Colonial empires are crumbling.
The so-called golden age of Pan-Arabism.
That's right. The idea suddenly felt possible, it had real political legs, and it needed a champion.
Enter Nasser, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt.
The man who seemed to embody it all. He didn't just talk about resisting the West, he did it. The big moment, the defining one, was nationalizing the Suez Canal in 1956.
I've read about this. The sources describe it as this incredible wave of emotion across the entire Arab world.
It was electric. You have to picture it. Nasser stands up to Britain, France, and Israel over the canal. They invade, but politically, Nasser comes out on top. He keeps the canal.
A massive symbolic victory.
Huge. He became this instant hero. His voice booming over the radio wave. Radios were key, then reached everywhere. Morocco, Iraq, everywhere in between. The message was powerful. Arabs weren't victims anymore. They could control their destiny, their resources, stand tall.
It feels like it moved beyond intellect, becoming this deeply felt popular movement.
Absolutely. Passionate, populist, and that feeling, that momentum, led to its peak physical expression in 1958.
The United Arab Republic, Egypt and Syria actually merging.
Yes, the UAR. For that brief moment, it looked like the dream, the centuries-old dream of one Arab nation was actually happening. It was real, tangible.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that peak was incredibly fragile, wasn't it?
Painfully brief. The UAR lasted only 3 years. 1958 to 1961, it collapsed. And that internal failure was the first major crack in the edifice.
Why? Why did it fall apart so quickly? The sources mention rivalries, but what specifically?
It wasn't just vague, bad feelings. There were deep structural problems. Two main things, really.
Okay.
First, Nasser's Egypt basically ran the show. Centralized control from Cairo, imposing Egyptian bureaucracy, pushing Nasser's Arab socialism. The Syrians, particularly the military and business elites, felt sidelined, their own political culture ignored or erased.
So resentment built up quickly.
Very quickly. Second, the core political ideologies were just incompatible across the wider Arab world. Nasserism stood for republics, military leadership, socialism. This put the UAR directly at odds with powerful conservative monarchies like Saudi Arabia and Jordan.
Which were often backed by the West.
Right, so you had this internal clash. Revolutionary socialists versus conservative monarchists. That ideological fight proved stronger than the pull of shared culture.
The political reality trumped the cultural dream.
It did. The UAR showed the limits of unity when political systems are fundamentally different. But even that failure, significant as it was, wasn't the knockout blow.
That came later.
That came in 1967, the Six-Day War.
Describe the impact of that. The sources call it shattering.
It was more than shattering. Israel's incredibly swift, decisive victory over the combined armies of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan wasn't just a military defeat. It was a deep psychological blow. It utterly discredited the secular, military-led pan-Arab project that Nasser represented.
It exposed the gap between the rhetoric and the reality of strength.
Precisely. All the promises of power and reclaiming dignity seemed hollow after such a swift, humiliating defeat. It was a collective trauma.
You can almost feel the air go out of the balloon.
That's a good way to put it. It created this huge ideological vacuum. If Nasserism couldn't deliver, what could? And this, crucially, is where other movements, particularly political Islamism, start gaining serious ground. They argued the failure happened because the project was secular, not in spite of it.
So the war didn't just defeat armies, it fractured the whole ideology.
Completely. After 67, the momentum reversed. Unity seemed impossible. Countries turned inward, focusing on their own national interests, their own survival.
And then came the final nail in the coffin, at least for that era's vision.
You could say that. 1979. Anwar Sadat, Nasser's successor in Egypt, signs a peace treaty with Israel at Camp David. Egypt, the heartland of pan-Arabism, basically went its own way, prioritizing its relationship with the U.S. and peace with Israel over the collective Arab cause.
That must have sent shockwaves.
It broke the old alliances. It symbolized the end of that Nasserite dream of unified political action against Israel.
What's fascinating here is just how quickly it all unraveled.
Yeah.
External defeat, internal divisions, they worked together, didn't they?
They fed each other. Military failure exposed the political weaknesses, and those political weaknesses made recovery impossible. It showed that shared language and culture, however powerful, just weren't enough to overcome deep political divides and, frankly, the pressures of Cold War geopolitics.
But did the idea itself die? Did people stop feeling Arab?
No, and that's the critical point. The political project of a single state, yes, that collapsed. But the underlying sense of shared identity of being part of a larger Arab world, that persisted. It just shifted shape.
How did it survive? What kept it alive?
Several things. Institutionally, you still had the Arab League. Founded way back in 45, often criticized as ineffective, a talking shop, but it exists, it provides a forum.
A symbol, at least.
A symbol, exactly. But maybe more importantly, culture became the main vehicle. When the politics failed, the poets, the novelists, the musicians, the filmmakers stepped in.
Ah, the shared cultural space.
Absolutely. Think about Egyptian movies watched everywhere, Lebanese singers popular from Rabat to Riyadh. This created a kind of cultural unity, a feeling of shared experience and emotion, even when the governments were at odds.
And this feeling, it flares up sometimes, doesn't it, in crises?
Definitely. Moments like the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003 or the ongoing Palestinian struggle, you see this immediate, widespread sense of shared outrage or solidarity erupt across the region. People who might disagree on everything else suddenly feel connected by that shared identity.
So the political slogans might be gone, but the underlying feeling is still there.
It's potent, especially among ordinary people. The leaders might pursue separate paths, but that sense of a shared destiny or at least shared challenges remains.
So looking at today, if it's not about creating one big state anymore, what does Arab nationalism or maybe just Arab solidarity look like for younger generations?
That's the key question. The sources suggest it's less about geography now and more ideological. It's driven by young people facing really tough economic conditions, political stagnation, foreign interference,
And what are the themes?
dignity, social justice, collective strength. Actually, very similar themes to Nasser's era, but completely detached from his state model, which failed. It's more about demanding basic rights, good governance, and respect, both from their own leaders and internationally.
And technology plays a role now, right? Digital connections.
A huge role. Social media, online activism, even things like pan-Arab music charts or shared streaming content, they create connections that bypass government control and borders. It's a unity built on shared grievances, shared culture, shared aspirations, expressed in new ways.
So the political dream of one state definitely had a major fall. But the idea, the cultural identity, the quest for dignity that keeps rising again, adapting.
That's the cycle. The political structures crumbled, yes, but the core idea, ideas like this, rooted in language and history and a feeling of shared fate, they don't just vanish. They get reinterpreted, reshaped, carried forward by new people facing new challenges. It's a story still very much in progress.
So what does this all mean? I mean, this isn't just history we're talking about. The struggle for dignity, for some form of collective identity and strength in the Arab world, that's happening right now.
Exactly. History isn't just stuff that happened back then, it's the foundation of the present. Arab nationalism had its rise, suffered massive blows, but the underlying quest, it endures.